Intros are boring, let's get into it. Sinaloa Cartel, a Mexican-based cartel famously known for their long-term leader, El Chapo, who was recently captured and imprisoned. The Sinaloa Cartel is one of the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world. It originated in the Mexican state of Sinaloa in the late 1980s and rose to dominance in the 1990s and 2000s. It became a global drug empire through violence, corruption, innovation, and deep organization, and it's still very much active today. 90% of the world's heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamine is controlled by them, and most of it is exported to the United States. Their organization also has extensive reach across Central and South America. The cartel uses violence, bribery, and a massive network of smuggling routes, including sophisticated tunnels under the US-Mexico border to build and expand their empire. The cartel is known for torturing and murdering couriers who lose their product, who fail to deliver on time, and who stand in the way of their trade. The cartel is known not just for brutal violence, but also for building strong political and police connections to protect its operations. It has been involved in deadly battles with rival cartels, especially the Jalisco New Generation cartel, over control of key territories. Even after El Chapo's capture and extradition to the US, the Sinaloa cartel has remained very powerful, largely because it operates more like a federation of smaller groups rather than a single centralized organization. Medellin Cartel. The Medellin cartel was a powerful and violent Colombian drug cartel that dominated the cocaine trade in the 1980s. It was founded by Pablo Escobar, along with other drug lords like Carlos Leder, Jose Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, and the Ochoa brothers. The cartel was based in Medellin, Colombia, and it controlled up to 80% of the world's cocaine trade at its peak. Pablo Escobar made the cartel famous and feared through extreme violence, assassinations, bombings, and open warfare against the Colombian government. He used a plata o plomo strategy, meaning silver or lead, either accept a bribe or face death. The cartel had so much money that Escobar once offered to pay off Colombia's entire national debt. The Medellin cartel built massive cocaine labs deep in the jungle and smuggled drugs using everything from commercial airplanes to private submarines. Their brutal reign led to thousands of deaths, including politicians, judges, journalists, and police officers. Eventually, a combination of the Colombian government, USDA agents, and a vigilante group called Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar, hunted down the cartel leaders. The Medellin cartel disbanded after the 1990s, when many members either turned themselves in or were killed, including Escobar, who was gunned down by Colombian police. The Medellin cartel changed the world's drug trade forever through its scale, violence, and influence, and it turned Pablo Escobar into a global symbol of narcoterrorism. Cali Cartel. Fierce rivals of Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel, the Cali Cartel was a powerful Colombian drug cartel that rose to fame in the 1980s and 1990s. It was based in the city of Cali, Colombia, and was founded by brothers Gilberto and Miguel Rodriguez Orejuela, along with José Santa Cruz Londoño and Helmer Pacho Herrera. Unlike the Medellin cartel, which used brutal violence and public fear, the Cali cartel operated more like a business empire. They were known for their quiet corruption, preferring to bribe politicians, judges, and police officers rather than kill them. Their motto was more like "buy, don't fight." This made them less flashy but just as dangerous. The Cali cartel eventually became even richer than the Medellin cartel, controlling around 80% of the world's cocaine market after Pablo Escobar's death. They expanded heavily into the US and Europe, using sophisticated smuggling techniques like hidden compartments in vehicles and legitimate businesses as fronts. Their empire began to collapse in the mid-1990s when the Colombian government, pressured by the United States, launched a massive crackdown. One by one, the Cali leaders were arrested. Gilberto Rodriguez was captured in 1995, and the others soon followed, leading to the fall of the cartel. The Cali cartel beat the Medellin cartel not through war, but through strategy, bribery, and business-like operations, until law enforcement finally brought them down. Gulf Cartel. The Gulf Cartel is one of the oldest and most established drug cartels in Mexico. It was founded in the 1930s, originally smuggling alcohol into the United States during Prohibition. Later, it shifted into drug trafficking, especially cocaine, marijuana, and heroin, becoming extremely powerful by the late 20th century. The cartel was based in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, right along the US border, which gave them a major advantage for smuggling drugs into America. Their longtime leader, Osiel Cárdenas Guilén, expanded the cartel's power by creating a heavily armed group of enforcers called Los Zetas, originally made up of defected Mexican Special Forces soldiers. For a time, the Gulf Cartel dominated Mexico's drug trade through brutal violence and military-like operations. However, after Cardenas Guillen was captured in 2003 and extradited to the US in 2007, the organization weakened. Eventually, Los Zetas split from the Gulf Cartel and became one of its deadliest rivals, triggering bloody wars across northern Mexico. Despite many leaders being arrested or killed, factions of the Gulf Cartel still survive today, mainly focusing on human trafficking, extortion, and drug smuggling. The Gulf Cartel was a pioneer in Mexican organized crime, blending smuggling, violence, and military tactics to build one of the most feared criminal empires, though internal wars eventually shattered its former power. Los Zetas. Los Zetas is one of the most violent and feared drug cartels in Mexico's history. They were originally formed in the late 1990s as the armed wing of the Gulf Cartel, made up of elite Mexican military defectors who had been trained in special forces tactics. Their main job at first was to protect Gulf Cartel leaders, assassinate rivals, and intimidate enemies. However, Los Zetas quickly grew in power and ambition. By the late 2000s, they broke away from the Gulf Cartel and became an independent criminal organization. They didn't just traffic drugs, they expanded into kidnapping, extortion, oil theft, human trafficking, and more. Los Zetas were notorious for their extreme brutality. They often used shocking violence such as mass killings, public decapitations, and torture to spread fear and control territories. Their tactics were much more militarized and ruthless than other cartels, making them stand out, even in a country plagued by cartel violence. Over time, internal conflicts and pressure from Mexican and US authorities weakened Los Zetas. The original leaders were captured or killed, and today, the group is heavily fragmented into smaller, less powerful factions. Los Zetas brought military-level violence and terror to Mexico's drug wars, turning them into one of the bloodiest and most feared cartels ever, even though their power has since faded. The Arellano Felix organization, better known as the Tijuana Cartel, was one of Mexico's most powerful and feared drug cartels during the 1980s and 1990s. It was founded and led by the Arellano Felix brothers, particularly Benjamin, Ramon, and Eduardo Arellano Felix. The Tijuana cartel's power came from controlling the Tijuana-San Diego border, one of the busiest and most important drug smuggling routes into the United States. By dominating this corridor, they made billions trafficking cocaine, marijuana, heroin, and methamphetamine. Unlike some other cartels, the Tijuana cartel was known for its extreme violence. They routinely used torture, assassinations, and public displays of violence to protect their territory and eliminate rivals. They clashed fiercely with other cartels, especially the Sinaloa cartel, leading to bloody turf wars in northern Mexico. Their downfall began in the early 2000s, when several of the Arellano Felix brothers were arrested or killed. Without their leadership, the cartel weakened significantly and fragmented into smaller groups. Though not as powerful as before, remnants of the organization still operate in the region today. Tijuana cartel built an empire by seizing the most valuable drug smuggling routes into the US, using terror and violence to hold onto their turf, until law enforcement and internal chaos brought them down. The Juarez cartel, a major Mexican drug trafficking organization that became especially powerful in the 1990s. It is based in Ciudad Juarez, just across the border from El Paso, Texas, making it a key player in smuggling cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamine, and heroin into the United States. The cartel was originally led by Amado Carrillo Fuentes, known as the Lord of the Skies, because he used a massive fleet of private planes to transport drugs across Mexico and into the US. Under his leadership, the Juarez cartel became one of the richest and most influential criminal organizations in the world. Amado Carrillo Fuentes' death in 1997 during plastic surgery weakened the cartel, but it remained a powerful force. Over the years, the Juarez cartel fought bitter, bloody wars against rivals, especially the Sinaloa cartel, for control of smuggling routes through northern Mexico. Today, the Juarez cartel is much weaker and has fractured into smaller groups. However, it still plays a role in the drug trade, with various factions controlling parts of Ciudad Juarez and the surrounding areas. The Juarez cartel once dominated the US-Mexico drug trade through power, wealth, and strategic control of a vital border city. But leadership losses and fierce rivalries have greatly reduced its strength. The Beltran Leyva organization. It was a powerful Mexican drug cartel that formed in the mid-2000s after a split from the Sinaloa cartel. It was led by the Beltran Leyva brothers. Arturo, Hector, Alfredo and Carlos. Originally, the Beltran Leyva brothers worked closely with Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and the Sinaloa cartel. However, after Alfredo Beltran Leyva was arrested in 2008, an event they believed El Chapo had helped orchestrate, the brothers turned against him. Their betrayal sparked a violent war between the two former allies. The Beltran Leyva organization became known for its brutality, targeting not just rival cartel members, but also police officers, soldiers, politicians, and civilians. They expanded their influence by forging alliances with other cartels, such as the Zetas, and by corrupting government officials at high levels. Their power peaked between 2008 and 2010. However, after Arturo Beltran Leyva, the main leader, was killed by Mexican Marines in 2009, the organization quickly fractured. Internal conflicts and government pressure led to their decline, and today only splinter groups remain. The Beltran Leyva organization rose from betrayal and became one of Mexico's bloodiest cartels, but the death of their top leader shattered their empire almost as fast as it rose.